Sam Kidd, who's a very famous actor from the 40s and 50s. I got his autograph this week, so I'm thrilled with that. That's like a personal highlight. And I think what we were talking about last time, I was saying part of the reason I like actors like Sam Kidd, I collect autographs of people, movie stars or whatever from the 50s and 60s, but I think part of the reason I like Sam Kidd, he represents a time for me of innocence, of when I feel things were better, and feel, and I mentioned this to you last time, it feels those times, the 50s and 60s, 70s, you know, the things we're seeing now and things you and I are talking about and getting angry about didn't seem to exist. There seems to be the world seemed a more libertarian place in that time, and I think I asked you the question: is this just me looking through rose-tinted spectacles, or were things better then?
Some things were better, some things were worse. So, and you are looking back through rose-tinted spectacles, because our childhoods, our teens and early 20s are always the best times of everyone's life, because you're going into adulthood, you're experimenting, the world is your oyster, you can achieve anything you think you can achieve. But some of the things were better then, such as community, such as family. Families lived in the same couple of streets, all next to each other, so you knew everybody. Our families now, some families now are spread across the world. So if it wasn't for technology, you'd never speak to them. That distance makes people more unhappy. People say from the 50s and 60s, I used to be able to leave my front door and back door unlocked. There was no crime. There was plenty of crime. You weren't burgled because you had nothing worth stealing, so you could leave your doors unlocked. Things like polio, diseases, poverty, malnourishment, they were things in the 40s and 50s, not a thing now. But then we look at things now that are worse. Lack of community, lack of family involvement, lack of personal responsibility. How many men don't have contact with their children? How many children are being brought up in single parent households? That damages children, damages relationships. So there's lots of things that were better then, but also things that were worse. And then flip that, there's things that are better now, but there's so many things that are worse now as well. So it depends how you judge. Was that a better era? What was your matrix? And how are you awarding points for these things?
Well, I think I'm kind of looking at it through the prism of what I'm interested in now, I suppose. And what I'm interested in now is free speech, liberty, the right, the rights, civil liberties, or the infringement of civil liberties. And I don't seem to remember in my youth, and I'll go from I was born in the 60s, but let's go forward into the 70s and the 80s. I don't remember there being a climate of fear like there is now in terms of people being able to speak their minds. And interestingly, I was going to say this for our next podcast, which would have been the next, but I was reading an article about, they did a survey of students, and basically they're saying, university students, the percentage, I can't remember it, I was going to print off the article and bring it, the percentage now, something like 40 or 50% of you are scared to speak their minds about immigration, about other things in university. And I don't remember a university in the 80s being scared of speaking my mind at all. I don't really remember. And if anything, we were encouraged then to be vocal, to go and protest and all those sort of things. And not necessarily protest now, and we've talked about this before, where protests seem to happen. People go on what we call safe protests, where we'll go, well, I'll go on this protest and I'll be with everybody else, and I'm on the right side, so nobody's going to give me a hard time. I think even then we would go on protests against things that potentially were not uncomfortable, but weren't particularly worried about it. It wasn't, so I didn't feel as inhibited as I am now in terms of expressing my opinions about various things. So I think I'm probably looking at it through the prism of that as more than anything else.
So we go back to the 60s, that was when protest really started, especially at universities. And you could also say that was when we started becoming more individualised as well. So acceptance of breaking down gender roles in society, acceptance of homosexuality, all these things came out of protest, demonstrations, the public wanting more freedom of individual choice. There was no issue of freedom of speech, then you could basically say what you wanted to say. The same people, the same ideology, that created that room. I'm not saying these things led to where we are now. So I don't know if these things were good things or bad things. That's a different discussion. But the people and the ideology that wanted to break down the patriarchy and wanted to break down heteronormative whatever they are in society are the same people now who won those battles, got those freedoms for individuals, and are now taking away people's right to freedom of speech.
Yes.
So they
interesting, yeah.
They used their freedom of speech in the 60s and 70s to fight for minorities and fight for what they felt were social constraints on them and how they wanted to live.
Yeah.
But the second they got into power, which they are now because all the elites are left-wing, all the organisations, all our institutions, they've won that war. Now that they're in the position of power now, they're now taking away freedom of speech from other people because they know that's how they won their battles in the first place.
Oh, I see. So what you're saying is it's a deliberate approach to take away the freedom of speech that gave them the ability to overthrow things.
Absolutely.
Because
they know the power of free speech.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers. I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.